Today, I'm going to show you how to preload large assets with preload.js. Oh, and hey, I'd like to mention this video's sponsor, Skillshare.com. Now, it's a brand new year here in 2019, and Skillshare will help keep you learning and thriving as they offer 25,000 different classes in coding, design, business, and more. For instance, you're about to watch my video that deals with the user experience, but after, you could watch this full course on the subject at Skillshare. Skillshare is also super affordable with a subscription that only costs $10 a month, but if you're one of the first 500 of my subscribers to click the link below here in the description, you get the first 2 months free, so take advantage. Hey everyone, what's up? Gary Simon of Coursetro. So today we're going to take a look at something called PreloadJS by the people at createjs.com. All right, so this is the main page. You can go to the docs, getting started. There's an example here kind of showing some of the things that it can do. And it's basically a library for allowing you to preload your assets in your projects. Okay, so I'm going to show you one such way of doing it. In fact, if you visit awards.com, awwwards.com, a lot of the sites use something like PreloadJS when they're dealing with sites with large assets for creating some sort of loading animation. Now, in terms of user experience, I should say you really should use this and learn how to use this technique correctly. And I'm not going to really touch on that. I'm just going to show you how to do it. So it's going to be up to you for the UX part in terms of how and where you want to integrate this. Okay, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. And also for today's question, what do you think about preloaders in general? How should they be used? Let me know in the comments and let's get started. Okay, so here we are at createjs. This is the official documentation. By the way, you can go to createjs.com. They have several other things here like easel.js, tween.js, sound.js, preload.js. That's the one we want. And you can go to a getting started page. And there's also an example down here of it in action. And then we can go to docs, which brings us to this primary page. They have a lot of examples and a lot of different sections as a part of their API and their documentation. So we're primarily going to be looking at load queue over here. All right, so just make sure if you're at all confused about something to check out this section here because it's going to be able to describe things a lot better definitely more in depth. So I have a blank folder here called preload.js, and we're going to create an index.html. Also, we'll do a folder of CSS and a main.sass file inside of it. You're going to need the Sass extension, so you just come over here, go to extensions, type in Sass, and install it. And I'll click Watch Sass. And that creates our main.css file there. It's watching it now. And then we can go back to our index.html. And in here, I'm going to put exclamation point to get some quick HTML scaffolding going. And type in link, enter. And we will link our main.css file here. Okay. Now, in order to get working in a full development environment, you'd be using something like the Node Package Manager to install different JavaScript dependencies and such. For us, we're just working simply in a very simple environment just for this tutorial. So we can use a CDN to get in our preload.js. And this is coming from the documentation as well. So I'm just going to copy off screen and paste this line right here. So we're using the minified version. Okay, so let's get out some HTML tags out of the way real quick, and there's only a couple really. We'll do a div with an ID of progress. So we're going to have our own custom progress bar that we'll create, and also a div with an ID of gallery. And inside of here is where our images will go. We're not actually going to put in the images elements right here. The JavaScript will append these through append child method for us. So down here, we'll just have empty script tags like that. And there we go. So real quickly, what we'll do is I guess we'll focus on here. We do have our Sass that we have to worry about to style it up correctly, but we'll focus on the bread and butter of this tutorial right out of the gate here. So the first thing I want to do is define just a couple of variables here for both these IDs here, progress and gallery. So we'll say let progress equals document.get element by ID. We'll say progress. All right, so that gets this one right here. We'll use Shift, Alt, and down to replicate the line above. And then also gallery. Great. Okay, so this right here, this next line is coming straight from the documentation. This is what we want. All right, so load queue. Right now we have it at true. We want to set this to false. If it's at true, it will preload them, but it won't actually allow you to append them automatically. So what we'll do is set that to false, and you can experiment by changing this value later on. Okay, so now what we'll do is we're going to say queue. All right, so that's the instance of the load queue we created right here. We'll use the on method, and we'll say on file load. And we'll reference a function. We could do it right in here, but we'll just go ahead and put handle file complete. So that'll be a function that we create. And then we will go ahead and also real quickly load our files as well. So queue, load file, and then we put our files that we want to load in here. In our case, they're just going to be images, very large JPEG images, and I wanted them to be unusually large just so that we can see them load and have a little bit of time so they're not instant like that. And I'll show you a trick, by the way, to simulate a slow internet connection within Google Chrome. It's not really a trick, but some people don't know about it. So I'm just going to replicate that 4 times with Shift, Alt, and down, and I will paste in each of these right here. These are completely free to use mountain pictures that I found right here, and I uploaded them to my Cetro S3, Amazon S3 account. Okay, so here's all 4 of them. Okay, and now what we need to do is say we need to have some sort of progress. So what we'll say is right here on progress, we're going to pass in an event. Okay, so every time one of these files is loaded, we have this progress event that is called upon. And so in here is where we can execute some code. So before we get too in depth without actually running anything, we can console log real quickly this event just to see what's happening. So we'll save it at this point. It's going to look real ugly in here, by the way. I will actually, yeah, we'll deal with this after. So what we'll do is go ahead and I'm going to hit Control B to get our sidebar, right click, and open with Live Server. Live Server is another extension. Just type it in here and install it and restart Visual Studio Code. Open with Live Server on our index.html. I already have one that is open, unfortunately. Oh yes, and this won't work yet because we have handle file complete. It's not defined yet. That's my bad. We'll come down here and then we'll just say function handle file complete, and we'll pass in an event there and then just do nothing for now. Okay, so we could see that we have different events that are being passed here. And there's a bunch of different things. Like for instance, we have properties for loaded and progress. If we look at, let's say this one down here, the progress is at 75%. And we will use this progress value right here to adjust the CSS width property of the progress bar. So let's work on that part right now. And that will involve some Sass working within CSS, and then also a little bit of JavaScript working within this progress event right here. So first we'll do the actual CSS or the JavaScript right here, sorry. So for the progress, we're going to say let progress equals math.floor, and we're going to basically create, because the progress is in a decimal format, we're going to make sure instead of 0.25, it's just 25%, for instance. So that would be event.progress times 100 here. And then we will say this.progress, and this is in reference to this div ID right here, this.progress.style.width. All right, so if you know anything about vanilla JavaScript and being able to modify the style property, first you say style and then the CSS property that you want to adjust. So width is going to equal progress plus percentage. You could also use the backtick form as well. All right, and then what we can say inside of here, if progress equals 100 or 100%, we can console log all done like that. And then we will also change a style. So what we'll say is document.querySelector. I didn't feel like defining a property for this simply because we're only using it once. So query selector body, we're going to change the style, the background to white. It already is white, but we're going to make it initially, it's not going to be white. So that's why we're doing that here. I just didn't want to forget it. So as we can see now, it says all done. If I refresh, it's going to say all done because all the images are already loaded into the cache. One trick, by the way, to redo this is let's add in that console log again, console log event, just so we can see them coming in sequentially. So one trick to simulate a slower internet connection, if these are coming in real fast, is to go to your network tab, and we can see it says online right here. And you have presets like a fast 3G, a slow 3G, offline. If you come under custom and click add, you can see I added one called slow internet. If you don't have one already, just hit add custom profile, and I can just modify this. And you can change the speed right here so that Google Chrome will simulate a different speed, because I'm on a pretty fast, it's 100 meg download speed. So I changed this to 30 KB or 30,000 KB, and this would be 30 meg download. So you could save that, forget about upload and latency, and then you can go ahead back here and click on slow internet. And then also, when you have your Chrome tools open right here, you can right click or just left click and long hold and choose empty cache in hard reload. So if we go to our console, we'll see they're coming in and then all done at the very end. That's what we want. Forget about the fave icon not showing up, no big deal. Okay, so now at this point, let's go ahead and give some style to the progress bar so we can actually see it changing, because the width is changing, but we don't have a background color or anything like that. So what we'll do is first let's create a body rule set. So we're going to say margin is 0 to get rid of default margin padding, or margin rather. We'll say height is 100% or 100 viewport heights. The background, we'll just say RGB here, 29, 29, 29. If you're wondering where I came up with that, initially I had just like dark gray I put in, and then I hovered over here, and then the editor right here will automatically give us RGB values. So right around there is good. So it's going to be pretty almost black. And then transition, we're going to give it a transition of background color for 2 seconds in ease. So that will create an animation once our JavaScript changes the background to white from this. So it's not just a very fast transition. This will animate it slowly for 2 seconds. So we'll save that. And then actually at this point, we could probably, there we go. Because it's instant and it's in the cache, we could see that if I actually empty the cache and hard reload, we can see it's black for a while, and then once it's ready, it fades in. So next we can go to progress, and then we could say height. I'm just going to make it, I think I'm going to make it small, like 1 pixel. and then the background. And again, this is like something like a gray. I had the value just so I can keep consistent. Yeah, this is just basically a mid-gray color. We'll say position is absolute so that we can position it up properly in the manner that I want to, at least. And then transition, well, we're not going to transition just yet because I want to show you before that. We're going to say top 45%. Opacity will be 1, and you're probably wondering why are we doing that, and you'll see it in a second. And the z-index will be 2, so that if the images do show up, we want it to show up on top, the progress on top of those. So let's save this. Okay, so let's empty cache and reload. There, you can see it go by, and it seems jerky because it's not a smooth animation between. So the one way you can do that is to add transition on the width property, and we'll just make it, you can really make it longer. I think it's best to make it shorter, like 0.1 seconds, and then we'll say ease. And then we can see how this changes the situation. If I empty the cache, and now you can actually see it moving between them instead of it being a very jerky sort of progress animation. Now what we should happen is once this gets to the end, we want it to fade out, the progress bar. Okay, so to do that, we're going to have a class called fade in. All right, and we'll say transform scale is 1. And I'm going to add the important flag because it wasn't working with that. And then also this is the wrong one. Sorry. I was looking at the wrong rule set on my reference monitor. So here we're going to say opacity is going to 0. And I had to add important again because it wasn't working without it. And then transition opacity for 2 seconds and important. Okay, so we're adding a transition, and we're taking the opacity to 0 when we attach fade out. Okay, so in order for that to work, we're going to add in a little bit more JavaScript. So this time we're going to say, let me just copy this, paste it here. We're going to say on complete. Okay, on complete, we're going to gut all of this. And you could check you can console log this event to see what is returned. What we're going to do is say gallery, which is defined up here. And this gets our gallery ID. We're going to say class list dot add fade in. We don't yet have that CSS worked in, so let me just comment that out for now. And then here we could do progress dot class list dot add not expand but fade out, which is the rule set that we just created. And what I found is that it fades out a little bit too fast, even when it's on complete. So what I ended up doing to remedy that is, well, let me just show you what it looks like right now. So if I empty the cache, we show it. I thought it was kind of going a little bit too fast, even though it looks pretty good. So for now, I'm just going to leave that there because I was going to add a set timeout just for this call, but I'm not going to do that right at this point. So now let's bring back our gallery class list add right here. And also before we actually, I'm going to comment that right back out because we need to handle this handle file complete event, because even though these are loading right now, it's not appending it at all to our gallery. That's why the images are not showing up. So that's handled right here within this function here. So what we'll do is just add a couple elements here. We'll say var item equals event.item. All right, so this is a reference to the item that was passed into the load queue. So handle file complete again is called every time one of these files are loaded right here. Okay, so we're just getting the information about each file type. And then also var type equals item.type. And by the way, this code is coming straight from the documentation. So there's also a type that's associated with each of the files that it will know about. And we're getting both of these so that we can do an if statement right here. So if the type equals createjs.types.image, then we can say gallery, which again is in reference to this ID right here, defined right here. We can append child the event dot result. All right, so what this will do is add in an image tag that will show the uploaded file type, or file rather, right in here. So it's going to manipulate the DOM so that it will add in these image tags right here. So at this point, we should be able to see when it starts to load, and we can see this big graphic right here, all of these showing up. So we need to do some CSS on this, and also adjust a little bit there's only a little bit more JavaScript to deal with this. In fact, we can just comment this out, and let's go back to our Sass. And what we'll do is reference our gallery initially. So our gallery ID is right here. And we want to set it to 0 because I don't want to see any of the loaded elements initially. And then we're going to add in that class when it's complete, fade in. So we're going to fade it in after the fact. Okay, so we'll say display grid, a width 100%. Grid template columns is going to be repeat to at 25%. So we're using the CSS grid, and I'm just going to have 2 of the images side by side, and they're going to be much smaller than what they are now. And then grid gap, I want to have a good gap between them of like 5 EM. We're going to say a height is 100 viewport height. Justify content will be center, and align content will be center, and then transform will be scale 0.8 because we're going to have it grow initially. Okay, so we also have to make our images responsive here. So we'll say width is 100% for the image tag, cursor pointer just for the fun of it, and then transform will be scale 1. And that's because I think I added a hover on this, or I was going to at least. In fact, I decided not to, so let's just remove that right there. And then finally, we'll have our fade in class where we fade that gallery in. So transform scale is 1, and it was 0.8 up there initially. And then also opacity will be 1, if I can spell, will be 1 important. And then transform all, both the properties, 1 second with a 1.5 second delay right there. Whew. Okay, I think that should be it. So let's give this a shot right here. So if I right click and do a hard reload and empty the cache, we see it. That is why there was a, what was it? It's a JavaScript property that I wanted there to be a set timeout because I don't like the look of the progress bar on top of the images. And there's my dog outside barking like crazy. Okay, so what we'll do is I'm going to add that in real quickly. So if I come over here, where is it at? I think it was set timeout on complete. Okay, on the progress. There we go. So it's set timeout right here. And we're just going to say nothing. And then we're going to make this 500 milliseconds, I think. Like half a second would be good enough. And then put this right there. And if I do an empty cache and hard reload, okay, so I realized that I have an issue here. When I was doing this fade in CSS, I have 2 transforms. It should be transitioned right here. Sorry about that. There we go. So now if I empty the cache and hard reload, we should see it. There we go. And now the transition property has that 1.5 second delay, so it's not sitting on top of or overlapping with the progress bar. Let's try it one more time. And there we go. Awesome stuff. All right, everyone, hopefully you found that useful. Let me know what you think for today's question, which is what do you think about preloaders in general and how should they be used for best practices and user experience? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys real soon with another tutorial. Goodbye.